But Go ahead and call the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners and North Carolina Legislative Delegation meeting to order on this 19th day of March. I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you for being here. I know we all have busy schedules, but this is important as y'all get ready. The legislative body gets ready to move back to the short session. We thought it was timely to try to do this. I wanted to make sure we could have our entire delegation here, so I apologize for moving it around a little bit, but we appreciate y'all being here. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Tyson to lead us in an invocation and pledge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you're able, please stand. Dear gracious and Heavenly Father, we praise and we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity to conduct people's business in Cumberland County. Please guide these proceedings as we go through and have these discussions that are important to our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And again, thank you all for being here. We're going to walk through our agenda and understand y'all have a lot of priorities that you're dealing with in Raleigh, and so we want to be sensitive to that. And so as I get into it, I'll tell you a little bit different way. We just thought it was important. We want this to be a two-way dialogue. So this is not just about a county's ask of our delegation, but it's also how can we help you? What are the things that we can do to help you serve our constituents, because they're both of our constituents, but also how we can help you up in Raleigh as well. So I'd like to see if our delegation chair has any opening remarks before we get started.
No, just thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the delegation, we are always wanting to hear what the needs are in those that we are serving. Hopefully, we will have a wonderful short session that will be very productive. We don't have crystal balls, and we still have Western North Carolina that we are assisting and have lots of needs. So we're here to listen and to learn.
I won't say we had a bingo card for every time we're going to hear North Carolina, Western North Carolina, but anyway. We also, in case you're watching basketball, we have, Assistant County Manager Phillips will be keeping us up to date on the Duke game because they're down right now by 11 points, but that's okay. So we want to go ahead and start with a presentation. I'm not sure who is directing me, but there we go. Thank you, Danny. All right, can I control it from back here? Yes, sir. Awesome. Oh, it's scrolling all over the place. Thank you. All right. So wanted to start with a thanks. These are previous local funding requests and just kind of give you a quick update on those. I know there's a lot of interest around Rose Pond. So if you recall, several years ago, $500,000 awarded. It was kind of stalled for a little while over the last year and a half. We've got that moving. We've requested an extension from OSBM on those dollars, and we appreciate the help on that. And then also we've got some requests in to you as a delegation about some asks we have to NCDOT and Wildlife. If you've never been out to Rose Pond, it's a great, out in northern Cumberland County, it's a great recreational area that can be even better with the dollars that came down from the state. Just need a little bit of help there, but things are moving forward. Our unhoused support center, again, there was $1 million moved for that towards our capital costs for the homeless shelter. This is continuing to move. We had to do some scope adjustment last year, just kind of looking at mission creep of it, making sure that it was in line with the original plans. That's on track right now to move towards the end of 2027. But what I will say on this is last year we had 0 beds in our community for women and children. This year, this time, we have 70 beds, and that's not even with our support center in place, and over 100 beds for White Flag. Again, PWC, the allocation, $12 million for the water infrastructure. You've seen that construction that's happening out there, our partners at PWC. Not only we have that, but in the interim, we put filtration systems, the county put filtration systems at each one of those schools, so they're drinking clean, safe, regulated drinking water right now while we're waiting for the build out to happen to those schools, so our kids are actually not drinking from contaminated water fountains. So I want to move through the local funding requests, and let me just say, we clearly understand as a board what's happening in Western North Carolina. We understand where the budget is and, the debate that's happened over the budget, and that y'all will move back into the short session. These are asks that you saw last year, so there's really not a lot of updates. I just want to give you kind of a snapshot on some things that we move forward. So not a lot of changes to the local funding requests that we made last year. As we look at, we want to put our water up front, so as we continue to build out the water and sewer infrastructure, a thing that I want to highlight that we hope we can get some time on your schedules as you get back up in Raleigh. We'll take a trip to come visit you and really talk a little bit more about, we've taken a regional approach in this. So this is a different approach. We're creating districts, so if you look across the county, we're creating multiple districts, water and sewer districts that work with the towns. So for example, when you look at Norcrest, which is a district, that has Wade and Godwin and Falcon all together in a district. We're working to build that infrastructure across those districts. So we're doing it in partnership with our municipalities because they have systems as well as us. We believe that that's a better way to do it, especially when you're asking for public dollars. It shows a collaboration. But we're also working with partners like PwC to, bring those resources in, as well as Harnett Water and Dunn. And our goal is to increase capacity in the county for both water and sewer. And that's going to be done in districts. Strategically, we do that because we can go after different sets of funding when we do it in a district level, like USDA and some federal opportunities. And we've had some success in pulling resources back from the federal government through Congressman Rouser and others back to bring dollars to help with our water. So these are the three water asks. Again, same as last year, $50 million to begin that, to help us with that regional approach that we're taking. $5 million for Grays Creek Phase 3, which we're not even there yet. That's for the engineering reports. And then the last one is to look at an intake along the Cape Fear River. So those are kind of the three from the water standpoint. The key takeaway here for you all is understanding the regional approach that we're taking. It's very different than it's been done before in these districts, and we look forward to kind of walking you through what that looks like. But just understand, everything we're doing is to build capacity of water and sewer in our county. As we look at as we move to the high-performing education system, again, you saw these two requests last year, so $15 million in appropriation for infrastructure, and then $15 million for new school construction. I think what's different when we talked to you last year, now that we've got a budget that we approved last year, this board allocated $310 million towards these two things. So $310 million towards to the deferred maintenance, but also to new school construction, another $150 million towards new school construction as well. So the point of that is that we're making the investments here. Historically, this has been the largest investment we've made in maintenance and new construction, and we're waiting right now for the Board of Education to come back to us to say, is there something else that they need based on this repurposing and redistricting that they are working through now. So, and then as we look at enhanced health and wellness, so $4 million against comprehensive health and substance abuse treatment for youth. This board set aside, so it's not just asking you guys for all the money. We've set aside $30 million for this in our budget last year, and this $4 million would add in that process. Hey, let's share. As we move forward and look at increased cultural and recreation activities, as you know, we are looking at a regional aquatic center, and this would help us towards, we're in the process now, we have a feasibility study that will come back to us that we will contract with a consultant to do that. That work will begin over the next few months, but our ask is for that $2 million like we did last year. Our current amount from Cumberland County is $2 million. This is going to be a state-of-the-art facility designed for collegiate and high school competitions, community recreation, and then hopefully advanced performance training as well. And we'll do this in partnership with folks across the community. And then the last one that you saw last year as well, as we move forward in a safe community, as we move forward on our safer community, looking at digital dispatch, what that does is that as we look at our 911 dispatching system across the entire county, this is our upgrade for the digital system as well. So those are our local funding requests. Where we really wanted to spend a little bit of time is where we think that you can help us is on grant advocacy. So we work really hard. We've got a great team that works on grants and requests up to the state. And so these are some areas where they're not budget tied. So hopefully these are some areas that you have the ability to help us with. So these are with the different agencies that are at the state level. So when we look at Rhodes Pond, I already mentioned that. We've got a request in for an extension for the dollars. And I know that's been done on some other projects. The Governor's Highway Safety Program, Representative Coleman, we know you're right in the middle of that. We'd love to have some additional help there, and I know you're already helping us, but we just want to keep that top of mind. As we look at the DPS, so there's grant funding out there. All of these are where we've submitted grant funding. This isn't just an ask. This is where we have active grants in, both for the local emergency planning committee, as well as hazardous material preparation grants from DPS as well. And then lastly, as we look at, and I can give you the dollar amounts on those if you want them, but we will provide that. It should be in your booklet. Then as we look at the DEQ side, the Merging Regionalization Feasibility Grant. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Norcrest is one of our water and sewer districts. So we actively have in 2 grants right now. One is for Norcrest with a deadline at the end of April, about $150,000. And then we have another one where we partnered with the town of Stedman to look at asset inventory. This again is an example of how we are regionalizing our districts. We're regionalizing our water and sewer districts to get, when we pull our resources together, that's a $50,000 ask, and that will help us begin to look at the equipment and the assets that they have inside the Stedman system. So these are some of the areas that we're looking for from the grant advocacy side, if you can help us with. I know this was an ask last time, and I think Senator Applewhite's one of the comments she made to me is if there's something I need to do, I can't help you if I don't know about it. And I heard that. And so we wanted to make sure that we provided anything that we are touching at the state level when it comes to, especially on the administration side, if we can get help there. Where I want to spend a little bit of time, and hopefully we can have some dialogue around, is our local policy objectives. So, and these are impactful. These aren't just, hey, we need you to run a bill to do X, Y, Z. These are things that are actively happening right now that have a direct impact on our county. I hate to use the word unfunded mandates, but there are some. And I think we've got to have a real conversation back here as neighbors and as residents of, not all residents of Cumberland County, but that represent Cumberland County. Property owners, excuse me, as property owners of Cumberland County. So the first one is, and I know you're hearing a lot of it, and we're fortunate that we have 2 representatives from our community on one of those committees talking about property taxes. But I can't stress enough that, as we look at property taxes, the impacts that will have on a county. It's one of our primary funding sources. And I get, has there been some areas that may have been out of control with property taxes? That's an opinion, and I've seen that dialogue. But it is one of the most stable revenue sources that a county has, and it's critical that we have that from a forecasting standpoint and a stability standpoint. We are, and Senator McGinnis, this is for you, we are one of 34 counties that cut their taxes. And we heard that last year from you all. We went through a reevaluation, and we not only cut it, we dropped it by 30 cents, from 79 cents to 49 cents. And that's one of the largest drops in the state of all 100 counties. And our tax rate actually came 6 cents below revenue neutral. And I don't need to explain revenue neutral to this group, but that's also, when you look at the 100 counties, we're one of only about 3 or 4 that did that. And when you look at the other municipalities around us, they didn't go below revenue neutral as well. So we were very deliberate about our process. Commissioner Fairclough made sure of it. But we were very deliberate in the process of looking at how we lowered that tax rate, understanding that the property tax values were increasing. And I know some people will say, oh, my property tax still increased. The reevaluation that happened was so large in some instances that we would have had to have cut the tax rate in the 30s probably to get where everybody would feel it. And that just wasn't physically possible during this time. But we know we have 2 people on that committee, so I would just say, if there's changes, just be mindful that this is a huge part of what we do, what we need for what we have for our revenues, and how we provide the services that we provide to the citizens in this community. So it's extremely important. As we look at health and wellness, I will tell you, this is a extremely big one that is going to hit this county, potentially. So as we look at so we got a couple asks. One, we want you to support for the state of North Carolina to assume the 25% increase in admin share to administer the SNAP benefits. So both of these are going to be around SNAP and Medicaid. And then support for the state of North Carolina to fund the continuation of Medicaid. So those are really the big 2. The bottom one is more of a technology piece and a systems piece. But I just want to give you what that impact means on North Carolina, or excuse me, on Cumberland County. So as we look at House Resolution 1, and this was federally mandated, that we decrease the administrative funding in North Carolina will decrease from 50% to 25%. Raising the county share from 50 to 75%. That's 2.9, basically $3 million on our budget, recurring. County Manager Greer, correct me if I'm wrong, keep me straight. That's a penny on our tax rate, roughly.
Almost.
Right, about 3 point something is a penny on the tax rate. So let's just call it round numbers for back of the napkin kind of math. It's a penny on the tax rate. So I want that to sink in. That is going to be costly, and that's one of the things that is not funded. There's no additional revenue. We just have to find a way to pay for it. And then as we look at also on the SNAP benefits, the error rate, if the error rate exceeds 6%, the state is expected to pass that down to the counties. So we have an additional exposure on the SNAP side of about $22 million annually. And that's triggered entirely by a statewide metric, and there's some things that go in, and I know y'all know about that. And what happens with SNAP. What I want you to take away is the impact. So that's $22 million. So that's about 7 cents on the tax rate. So I got 8 cents of tax rate that I either have to find, so we have to find $25 million, roughly $25 million, or we have to raise taxes by 7 cents. So, and I'm not saying it's an either or. I just want to I want us to understand the impact that that's going to have. And we understand it. It's the law. It's what's been passed. We'll work our way through it. But I just think it's important that our folks in Raleigh that advocate for us, as well as at the federal level, understand the impact that it's going to have on a low wealth community. And that's important. And we're doing everything we can to keep a tax rate low, because we know if we do that, we're going to get people to come in here to buy houses. We're going to get business. We went from the bottom of the tax side for recruiting businesses to the top quarter. So we need to stay there. I just before I walk away from this one, this is the largest one that will impact us. And I want everyone to understand that it really shifts a lot of the burden down to the counties that we're going to feel for many years to come. So, and then as we look at, let me go back. I don't know how to get back here. How do I go backwards? I can't see it. Oh, where's previous? There it is. Got it. Sorry, should not have had me driving this. And then as we look at Medicaid expansion, the impact there is by the end of 2026, we have to have the eligibility in place as far as looking at the Medicaid eligibility and the impact that will have on our workforce and the workload that we'll see at DSS. So they're verifying the monthly work requirements, not adding any staff, not adding any funding. It will understand that we have one of the largest DSS operations in the state. And so that's going to be some, strain on our budget when we look at the administrative mandate to do these work requirements. And then I think the other bigger fear is the trigger that's in place, and I understand why it was put in place, clearly understand why it was put in place, but that automatic repeal trigger, so just to be aware of that, and hopefully that doesn't get triggered, because quite frankly, the impact that will have here in our community is our emergency rooms will fill back up, as we saw before, and that will put a strain not only on Cape Fear Valley and what they're doing, but also on our health and human services, which we just talked about, will already have a strain on it as well. So I'm hopeful as y'all work through the Medicaid, whether the reimbursement rates or whether this trigger goes in place, that hopefully we can maintain the expansion in North Carolina. It was a long process to get there. We're thankful that it did, but we need to make sure that it stays in place. As we look at our school system, and I don't want to go too deep into this, I just want to make a point that this board is very focused on our education system. We're making the investment, but they're also our partners in this. I know y'all are going to a meeting tomorrow with them. We'll be there as well. But one of the things we wanted to highlight, because we fund it, and we funded it last time. So adjusting the formula for supplemental state funds for teacher supplements, basically. Last year was the first year we helped fund the teacher supplements as part of the operational dollars that the school board asked us for. That allowed us to get to the top in the region, but that's costly. Those are additional dollars that could go to other things if the formula wasn't where it was. And I know you all know the formula is based on the county tax base and the median income, but also on the effective tax rate as well. The problem that happens is the formula looks at how poor a county is by its tax base and economic composite index, and then it assigns a per teacher maximum supplement. So the formula is kind of it hurts counties like us that have large population of teachers, but are low wealth. So maybe it's something around the tier 1 discussion or something, but because we're a high poverty district and we have a large concentration of teachers, we take a penalty with it. We take a hit from it. And that's really the core problem. Is the formula was designed around small, low wealth counties. It never anticipated that large, high poverty urban districts would get squeezed out. And we're probably the only one, us and maybe Onslow County maybe be the only two. And so we're unique in a lot of ways. So if there's a way that we can work through that, now we are funding it. We are funding some additional dollars to make it up so that we can get to where we can be competitive, so we're not losing teachers across the line to Harnett County or Hope County or some of these other counties. But those are dollars that could go to somewhere else, to other operational cost. So Glad to get into more detail of that. I know they're going to talk to you about that a little bit tomorrow as well. As we look at smart development and infrastructure, the interbasin transfer request by Fuquay Marina of over 6.1 million gallons a day. We need your help with that, continued help. I appreciate the letters of support that have already been made. But look, let me just be honest. I mean, these are decisions that are going to be made by the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission, and DEQ. We need your help. We need your continued advocacy. Letters are great. We're continuing to advocate. We've got, working with PWC, working with our county commissioners up and down the Cape Fear River. We're advocating for that. I personally went and spoke at 3 of these hearings, and I know several of you did as well. But we need this continued advocacy. They're going to make this decision in an April-May timeframe, and quite frankly, we can't lose capacity from the Cape Fear. We can't. With what we're trying to do, the growth, if we want to get out of Tier 1, we've got to grow. To grow, we've got to have water. We've got to have infrastructure. And I know we're behind on putting the infrastructure in, but if you take the water away, it just doesn't work. So we ask for your continued support there. Talk to, of course, Secretary of DEQ, but also the EMC members that y'all appoint, by the way, if I can just add that in. As we look at I-685, the route from Fayetteville to Cumberland County, just your continued support for that route versus Dunn. This is the exact route for the future I-685 corridor. Instead of going through Greensboro to Dunn, we want it to come through Cumberland County. Fort Bragg has advocated for a route that comes through Cumberland County, and they're supporting that. General Anderson, in my conversations with him, they are actively supporting that and have verbally supported that. So that's a good thing. We think it's going in the right direction, but we want to make sure we keep that pressure on until the final decision's made. And then, as always, we'd love to get passenger rail. I think that's been on here for probably 20, 25 years. But support and advocacy for the completion of the rail route from Fayetteville to Raleigh and Raleigh to Wilmington. And then, did we lose one? Oh, no, there it is. Lastly, on the safe community, just the implementation of Irina's law. You know what this did. Y'all passed the law, and we're not here to have a conversation around the law. But what I do want you to know is that it impacts us by about $480,000. So that's the additional cost that we're going to feel in our detention centers, in our court systems, in these different locations. We're going to feel that additional cost. So as you see, a lot of these policy objectives that we laid out are really ways that y'all can advocate for us up there and understand the needs of our unique community that we have here, and be able to work not only on the local policy objectives but also on the agency type funding. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to open it up to the legislators first, and then we'll go over to the commissioners as well. So, Madam Chairwoman?
I'm going to...
You can punt the ball to whoever you want. I will give you control of the gavel.
Thank you. And Senator McGinnis, would you like to start? Do you have questions or comments?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the Cumberland County Commission and other distinguished guests here. We appreciate you having this meeting today and bringing forward these issues. And Cumberland County has come a long way in the very recent past with bold and decisive leadership objectives. And my hat is off to you for bringing forth these outside-the-box thinking ideas. Because they're, we can't, the old wives' tale is you do the same thing over and over again, expect a different outcome. We know the definition of that. And so thank you for looking outside the box, thinking outside the box, and moving outside the box. I do applaud you for your stance on public education and the $310 million that you have brought forward to start that initiative. I would tell everyone, and I'll tell the schools this tomorrow as well, there are two ways to build school buildings. There's the expensive way, and there's the economical way. And the economical way, of course, is design build. And if you hire an architect, there's a reason that they want it to cost $160 million. It's called 8% or 6% or 10%, whatever the number is. They have no incentive whatsoever to build something efficiently and effectively, but they have a great incentive to build something elaborate. And the main thing we want to see is, in Raleigh, is to build effective, efficient, and usable that's going to last a long, long time. I went in a school the other day, and they had the terrazzo floors, and they had the standing seam metal roof. And that will be here till Jesus comes back. And that's the kind of construction that we need to have. And I applaud you for that, and I know that the school board is working towards that end as well. The 6.2 million gallons a day that's being proposed from the Cape Fear River to be dumped into the Neuse is a no-go. We must all stand side by side and arm in arm to make sure that this doesn't happen. I don't have a problem with them using the water in the Cape Fear and cleaning it better than they found it, and putting it back in the Cape Fear, but not removing it and putting it in another basin. I think that is bad policy. I think if it starts, it's not going in there. And just today, I've signed an additional letter in concert with my associates and peers in Wilmington and New Hanover County for the same purpose. We've got to all stand 110% united to make sure that this doesn't happen, because it is a train wreck and it will not be good. Well, we are sitting on a gold mine. We have something that is the ending of every county in North Carolina. Major river, major rail, major interstate, largest military base in the world, bringing an immense amount of capital to be invested and shared and spread along with the community. So those are things that I think are very powerful. The 685 route, of course, is something that's going to happen 20 years from now. We've got to do exactly what you're saying on that, Mr. Chairman, and we need to make sure that our military friends over at Fort Bragg are exercising their bully pulpit, because they will have an immense amount of power in that decision. And the expansion of the rail, passenger rail connection, we had several members at a meeting in Switzerland this past week, and they were all about the rail system in Europe. But like the water and sewer system that could have been put here 45, 50 years ago with free grants from the federal government, we have not taken some opportunities that we should have, and we're paying the price for it. But those are some that I see, and I do applaud you on your consolidation points. I know we've talked about this. You've got some consolidation opportunities, and we've got to take those, and we've got to modernize, and we've got to digitize everything we can, because there's too much of everywhere of doing it by hand. We got to digitize, and we got to computerize as much as we can. But those are a couple that I see, and I would also have a question, Mr. Chairman, and I don't have to have an answer on it today, but the 23 grants that were issued, we've received a letter from the folks in Raleigh about some of these grants had not been encumbered, and we need to go back over those lists, make sure we don't want anything being sent back to Raleigh because we didn't get it encumbered or spent time. So we'd like to go over the list with you guys and your folks and make sure we're up to speed on that, because as I say, I do not want one penny of the hard-earned money that you and my predecessors and our predecessors lives on the delegation battled so hard to bring over $400 million here. I don't want to see a penny of it go back because it was not spent.
Senator, we'll get you an update on that. We received that document and we've been working through it. It's one of the reasons why we're requesting that extension on the Rhodes Pond piece of it. But we are actively working through that and making sure that we don't leave any dollars unspent or unencumbered, I should say.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
get your report.
We have a few more, so. Senator Applewhite?
Mike, you want to go? Oh, okay, great. Mr. Chair, thank you so much for your presentation. You summarized all of the things, the concerns that I have for the county, particularly the things that, can be considered as unfunded mandates. I'm very concerned about the impact of SNAP to our county and our ability to handle the semi-annual revalidation, because it was annually, now it's going to be every 6 months. And I know that Cumberland had, a relatively higher error rate, but you mentioned that you're not hiring any more people. But how are we going to get the error rate down if we're not, if we don't have the ability to hire? I'm not asking really for the answer right now, but that was part of my understanding, is that post-COVID, people didn't show back up, and it's understand that's around the state, but we've got to find a way to manage that, because if our error rate stays high, then there's a cost associated with it. It's not critical, I'm not being critical, it's just a reality of it. I think that some of the issues that you mentioned, particularly about the possibility of limiting your ability for taxes, to manage your taxes. In my short time in the legislature, and you can probably agree, I think a lot of the pressure is going to have to come from outside of the building. I would assume that your state county commissioner will put forth, County Commissioner Association will put forth a lot of pressure. I certainly would not entertain voting for anything like that, but I think we're going to need a whole lot of help across the state, not just our delegation being involved with that. In terms of ensuring a safe community, I did meet with the sheriff a little while ago, and you and I have spoken about ICE. We don't want any rumors in the community. I'm sure that you all have considerations of detention facilities, availability of detention facilities, if people are picked up by ICE. Is that something that you all have considerations for? Or if you want to address that.
I'll let you finish your questions, and I'll
Okay, that's
try to
perfect.
hit them all if I can.
So that was just a question about, particularly what we might be able to do with people are picked up with ICE. How would we, manage that? And then your request for funding for schools. And E.E. Smith was mentioned as a possible school to be replaced. Is the money that is being requested, would that be dedicated to an E.E. Smith school regardless of where it is located? And that's the gist of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I will say, back on DSS, we haven't frozen any positions or anything on DSS. We were just saying it's hard to add additional positions without additional dollars.
Yes, sir.
We've got one of the best in the business with Director Brenda Jackson. I know you know her. Her and two of our ACMs and one of our new ACMs, and I actually should let them introduce themselves. And I regret for not. She just walked down, didn't she? See, I gave her a spotlight and she walked down on me. Tafana Bradley, who came from New Hanover County, is pushing that area and has really wrapped her head around some of the issues that we're going to see. So we're not saying we're cutting any positions there. We're just trying to look at what it looks like and how we're going to manage the workflow that's going to come.
The additional workflow
that's going to come. And then on E. Smith, again, we can't tell you how to craft your legislation. You can direct that legislation if you want to designate it to a certain school, you can do that. We as a body are looking towards the school board to provide us their recommendations, and we're going to work to fund those recommendations. As you know, E. Smith has been part of that discussion. I think it would be our desire to, the dollars, if they come from the state, that we would look to fund that new construction. And what I'm hearing from the school board, it may be more than just E. Smith. As far as location, I'm going to leave that with the school board. We fund versus tell people where to put the schools.
You weren't going to walk into that one, were you?
But what we will do, Senator, is we will be in the room when those discussions are happening, because it's important. And we'll be in the community and hear what's going on and make the decisions. But, the school board is going through that process. I'm sure you'll have that conversation tomorrow with them on it. And then your ICE question was...
Yeah, the detention facility, you don't have to discuss that in detail, but there seem to have been some concerns because the facility is already, our detention facility is full, from what I understand. And, I would think that we're having some options for how we would manage that.
So, and again, our detention center is run by Sheriff Morgan. Of course, and we continue to have routine conversations with him about those. We're not seeing any, indicating broader kind of enforcement operations around Cumberland County right now. I know there's been some reports of things. We stay in constant contact with the sheriff as it looks at resources. We've done things in the detention center. We've actually resourced the detention center over the last year because it's been underfunded,
yes, sir.
Quite frankly.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we always want a smaller detention center. But we work with him hand in hand, and if there's resources that he needs, then he'll have that conversation with us. But the laws are the laws, and we defer that to the sheriff for those types of activities.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chairman, first let me tell you that I appreciate the detailed summary and presentation. And as we met with the city last week, the main thing that sticks out to me, in this time, is the significance of essential water and sewer to build on to our infrastructure, to build on to our tax base, to build on to attracting industry, schools, quality of life, jobs, everything there. And the only question I have in that, this is a great plan, the district model. Is there an approach that the county has looked at to make that investment into a certain part of the county that has the largest tax base or the largest home sales, so we can hurry up and recoup those funds and revenue from that infrastructure investment?
Representative Colby, great question, and I like what you think, for sure. So a perfect example of that is Mayor Burnett, who I know you know, in Godwin has been screaming. He's got 130 homes he can put in tomorrow. He's been screaming for years that he needs infrastructure. This district plan is doing that. This regionalization process is doing that. We found our great staff found a way through it, and we're bringing him water. And it's something he's been asking for 4 or 5 years now, and we're executing on it. But to your point, that's exactly right. But what you also have to think of, you also look at the untapped potential across this county. Our county can only grow in so many areas. As we grow up northern Cumberland County, we've got capacity there for industrial growth. We're working to try to build that sewer and water out to make sure that Robert Van Giens can recruit industry up through there. But then when you begin to look into southern Cumberland County and out, with 295 and the loop that's there now, we've got to set the conditions for success. So one of the things we're being very deliberate about as well is as we lay out these districts, we're also taking the latest land use plans, and we're laying the land use plans on top of the district. So when we're building to the standards that the land use plan that's projected out 20 years will match. So if we need to build to urban standards, which Commissioner Tyson can tell you about fire pressure and all that stuff above my head, but if we need to build urban standards, we're going to build the urban standards in those districts or in those areas because we want to facilitate that growth. Because if we're going to get out of Tier 1, as Mayor Colvin likes to remind me, I got to have infrastructure because we got to have housetops and we got to have those types of things. So we're going to build in both areas. We're going to look at that low-hanging fruit, like in Godwin, but we're also going to build to the areas so that we can grow. So and also in talking with our municipal mayors, how do they want to grow as a community as well? Because that's important, and those are conversations they need to have in their communities as we build out these districts. How do they want to grow as a community? And those land use plans should reflect that.
Well, thank you for that. Now, I get a number of calls, and I have since the day that I took office, about completing the Western Fayetteville annexation hookups. So, and those are folks that already own their homes.
Yes, sir.
And they're already paying into the tax base.
Yes, sir.
And it's a great vision, but I'm just wondering how fast would that revenue come in before you may get a person that may get up and relocate, and then they sell their home and then they're gone. But that was just the question on the water and sewer. I know that's a major priority for the growth of Cumberland County and to improve all of the things here for all of us. So.
Sir, you hit the nail on the head. We are woefully behind, and so we're playing a little catch-up, but we'll get there, and we're trying to have the fastest plan, but focused on how we build capacity across the community, and that takes multiple partners, as I mentioned before. And PwC's been a great partner. I know one that's probably near and dear to your heart. You hear Spring Lake talk about $75 million worth of infrastructure needs. We are actively talking with Mayor Anthony and their team, their new interim manager, about what that looks like and how we can help and how we can create that district up there, because we've got systems up there as well. So we're moving in that direction. We're kind of trying to not just focus in one area. We're trying to focus as much as we can across the board and have a very deliberate plan of action on how we're doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Wheatley, can I have a quick follow-up,
Yeah,
please,
absolutely.
ma'am? Commissioner Debbie, I'm a little bit trying to catch up here. I know at one time in terms of water, we were talking about deep water wells. Then we were talking about PwC extending the sewer lines. So this regional approach, is that in place of PwC extension? Just help me understand that, please.
So PwC is a part of it. They're a great partner. We do a lot of conversations with Tim Bryan and his team over there. So it's a piece of it. So as you look into what we're doing in Grays Creek,
Right.
We're working with PwC as a water provider to bring water into Grays Creek. As we look at other parts of the community, as we look at Norcrest, it may be different partners that we use up there. Maybe it's you got Eastover Sanitation District, you've got Dunn Water, you've got Harnett County Water, but you also have PwC. So to Representative Colvin's point, sorry about that, to Representative Colvin's point, how we can bring it the fastest, the best way is what we're doing. So it's focused on capacity. So the more capacity we can bring into this county from whatever source, if we get it from Harnett County, which we've signed an MOU with Harnett County, we're actively talking to Dunn to bring more water into Cumberland County. That's what this is about, is building capacity. There may be some wells, because we need those capacities so that in the interim we can get that capacity and then phase off of them. So this regionalization approach, or this regional approach and this district approach, maximizes flexibility and it maximizes the capacity that we bring into our community. And quite frankly, we're talking Fort Bragg as well.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. That clears it up.
And just to follow up with
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
the Senator's remarks, I've been looking at some data center information, and I don't know if we're looking at one coming here. I've heard rumors, but the amount of water that it takes to run one of these large data centers, and the water doesn't go back into anywhere, it goes up into the air. Am I wrong? Am I hearing correctly? I mean, if that's something we're looking at, we have even more of a water issue than...
So we are, what we are doing as a board when it comes to data centers right now, we're looking at the development policies. So how do we shape the community and how do we shape the development. And so we actually have a public forum Monday night where we're going to listen to the community and get input from them as we proceed down this road and look at how, because quite frankly, a data center doesn't need to come through government to come into your community. I mean, the market drives it. They find a person that can sell it, they negotiate a rate with the utility, and they're in. But what we can do is we can shape it through the right type of policy and business-friendly regulatory procedures. And that's what our intent is to do and how we'll shape it. Because to your point, we got to have capacity here.
Representative Colvin, did you have any other?
No. Well, I was just going to thank you all for engaging in the idea, the grant programs, because that gives us an avenue, right? And you understand that, how we got to try to move around the building and find resources. And I know that you all did fill out those grant applications for this cycle with the Governor Highway Safety Program. Pedestrian safety is a thing in the county. There's dark roads and private roadways. So thank you all for that.
And thank you for hosting that and making sure we were aware of it. That's important.
Representative Smith.
Sure. First, I'll echo what the other members of the delegation have said, and just expressing thanks to the board and the staff for preparing this report and binder. I know a lot of time went into this, and it's much appreciated, especially the level of detail that y'all went into. Throughout the presentation, I just sort of made notes, and so I can just sort of address some of those. I won't even call them concerns, just things that I noted. Within the quality, smart development, and infrastructure portion of the local funding request, there are two $5 million requests for engineering reports, so $10 million total. And to me, I was just curious, what goes into these reports? Probably say 40 to 50% of my law practice involves construction litigation, so I certainly understand the importance of detailed engineering reports, or reports generally, to set expectations, especially when it comes to cost. But $5 million a piece, $10 million for reports, we're not even talking about construction or materials. That seems on its face to be a little bit high. So I would just be curious as to what kind of details we're getting from these reports. Enhancing health and wellness, there's a $4 million ask to expand comprehensive mental health and substance abuse treatment services for youth. Last week we met with the city of Fayetteville, and they mentioned, I think they requested an additional $4 million for the office, or OCS, the Office of Community Safety, and it's been told it's 3. So I'm just curious, is this, and I understand that the county, you're dealing with the sheriff's office, it might not directly operate within the city limits, so is this $4 million, does it exist outside of what the city's doing, or is this meant to complement what the city's doing? And if there's any overlap, is there a way that those funds can be used to work together, so potentially reduce the ask of one or both? Just to make sure that we're working efficiently and perhaps in a coordinated manner. Not that we're not. That's just a question. Other notes. The support for the state of North Carolina to fund the continuation of Medicaid expansion. Chairman Debbie, you mentioned the reduction in emergency department wait times, and I think that's when we talk about the need to continue funding Medicaid at its current level, that's really an important factor. And we have a very busy ED. Are there statistics to support that? And if there are, and maybe you don't have them on hand, but could we get those? Because that sort of stuff, we're not just saying it anecdotally, we have empirical evidence that says, hey, once this Medicaid expansion went into effect, our providers noticed considerable wait time reduction in our emergency department, and here are the figures. The interbasin transfer, I think the delegation is united in our opposition to that, as would anyone in Cumberland County would be. One thing I've spoken with both the PwC and the governor's folks, and I haven't really gotten an answer to this. Last session we passed a bill that limits the ability of administrative agencies to act.
unless there's unanimous approval, or, depending on varying levels of the monetary impact, which I think this would be pretty high. If it's not unanimous, it's high, 80%, 90% of the board. And at that, I think it was some, like, colloquially called the RAINS Act. I don't know if that's what the final bill was called. But the applicability date for that bill, and whether or not that maybe unintentionally would benefit us, because it will make it harder for that transfer. It's not just a majority of that board approving the transfer because of that bill. Is the EMC going to have to be unanimous? And I think that's something, when that decision is being made, if we can argue that threshold, because of that bill, needs to be higher in order to make that transfer. And Senator McInnes, we can talk to the folks, Senator Applewhite and Representative Coleman and Wheatley, we can talk to the folks who are united on that front and say, no, like this bill was applicable as of this date, and so this decision needs to be unanimous. And I'm confident we can get some dissent. If it's like most boards, where rarely contentious decisions are unanimous.
If you go too much further, Representative Smith, I'm going to have to answer some of the questions. I should have known that going to you, but I apologize. I'm good, but I may not be that good.
And I think that's all I have.
But no, you're fine to ask more questions.
No, that was it. That was it. Thank y'all again.
So a couple points on your questions. So when we define the reports, and we'll ACM Phillips, we can get some detail, but it's really around the engineering side that needs to happen, and a lot of the preparatory work that happens with engineering and planning, and so that is an expensive upfront. It's not just it's not a physical report. It's probably kind of not the white.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. It wasn't meant to be like accusatory. That just it helps to know like what goes into that. That just is. If that's the figure for a report.
It's not just a report. It's all the initial infrastructure engineering that will go into how we're going to do that expansion project for phase one, but then also the intake. So it's that preliminary engineering, the preliminary engineering reports that come back to us with all the findings, with all the work that's done. So that's that piece, but we'll get you some detail on that. And then we look at the $4 million, and I was there, so just hearing what they talked about. One of the things that you hear with OCS, now that you have a county coming alongside and really looking at the homelessness as well as the mental health and substance abuse, OCS is really built off of 4 pillars. 2 of those pillars are homelessness and mental health. We're running alongside and kind of adding to some of those pillars so they can focus on not the bigger picture of shelters and things like that. They're focusing on more, inner city kind of things. And so it's not going to be a duplication of resources. Mm-hmm. What we would look at to do is we've allocated $30 million towards this mental health, what we call a mental health diversion center, but it's really going to be probably something along the lines of more of a behavioral health urgent care center, kind of what they call a BHUC, that you see in Greensboro. And what we're really looking to do is partner with Cape Fear Valley and others, the Alliance, which is our provider here, and that funding would help us move in that direction to provide the gaps that have been identified in our community, whether it's substance abuse or mental health services, that immediate need when people are in crisis, to get them through that first 30 to 60 days. So those dollars would augment those things, not duplicate what the city's doing. The city is looking at how they would take those dollars in the different pillars. And then you asked around the Medicaid on the hospital. So what we do know is, yes, we saw an impact in a reduction, but financially we saw a huge impact to the bottom line of the hospital, millions of dollars to the bottom line of the hospital, because people now had insurance. Quite frankly, and they weren't using the emergency room as their urgent care. They were actually, or primary care doctors. So it's going to have an impact. We can reach and get some numbers from the hospital, but I used to know some of those numbers off the top of my head, but it will directly impact. But no matter what, we still have one of the largest emergency rooms, and Representative Whitley, you would know that from being over there in your previous life, but we have one of the busiest ERs in the country. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Mr. OG on the hospital board.
I think we improved ourselves. We were ninth. I think we're now 15th in the nation.
And then the last point on the interbasin transfer, that's exactly why I wanted to kind of keep this on the windshield, is because if it's going to happen now, it can happen again, and we need to put some legislation in place to make sure that we're protected. And I got to believe, looking at Cape Fear River Basin and all the districts that line that, there's some pretty influential people, if I recall from my days up there, that probably should be willing to make some of those changes. So I'm hopeful that y'all can do that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to ask too many more questions, but in just a couple of observations. I do believe, and even with our meeting with the city of Fayetteville, water and sewer is just at the top of the list. And as I mentioned, countywide, at our meeting the other day, I got a little scolded for that, but I still believe that countywide water and sewer is absolutely needs to be one of our top goals to enhance services, and that we can have the growth that we are looking for to do all these other things that we've talked about. I'm very concerned about the Medicaid piece that you have talked about, because there is definitely agreement, and only way that the Medicaid expansion was passed at the General Assembly was people agreeing that the federal government was going to pay 90%, and we were able to get others like hospitals and pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, I don't know exactly which ones, to pay the other 10%. If that ends, we all have a big problem. And because I don't know that there's an appetite for anybody to go back on that agreement, and it would have to be something new and different, and Washington is key in all of that. I'm really hopeful that we will see our Rhodes Pond project. It has caused me to have a little gray hair, only because of the passion that has been put into this, and that is a drop of the monies is really a drop in the bucket, it seems like, but this is one of the things that we, I think, can all agree, if you've gone and seen this site, can bring in business and people into our community for fishing and recreation. Grants are so important, and I don't know how many grant writers you have, but the more the merrier if they can get something done. And as always, we're here to service the community and make sure that your needs are held high in the General Assembly. All of us say Cumberland County, and what is it that we can do to make our citizens' lifestyles and their quality of life the best that it can be. So just continue to let us know what you need from us. We look forward to your visit. I could ask 100 questions, but I think we've had enough from our side, so I'll yield to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Wheatley, and I can guarantee on Rose Pond, Mayor Turman is going to make sure that gets done. So we appreciate your advocacy on that. It's going to be a great recreational area for our community as we get there. At this time, before I open it up to the commissioners, I want to ask the commissioners to kind of make some comments and be respectful. We'll hopefully let everybody out of here about 5:30, but I want to ask the county manager, and I should have done it at the beginning, my apologies, sir, but if you can introduce our wonderful staff. We could not do everything that we do here in this county with our staff, and since the delegation has been here, we've got some new faces. And some people in some new positions that aren't new faces, but in new positions. So, County Manager Greer, if you could please introduce your incredible team, I appreciate it.
I want to start with Heather Skeens, Assistant County Manager Heather Skeens. Next, I have Assistant County Manager Faith Phillips. Newest Assistant County Manager Tafana Bradley. I still can't go to Wilmington. Cross the New Hanover line. We have Deborah Shaw, Assistant County Manager. Ty Valda, Chief of Staff. And behind Representative Smith, we have Diane Rice, our communications director. Not really my staff, but people who make sure that we stay in the right place. We have Rob Hasty standing in for Rick Moorfield, County Attorney. Andrea Tebby, our clerk to the board, and deputy clerk to the board, Alva Clark, and myself, Clarence Greer.
And again, thank you, and our clerks as well. We couldn't do what we do without both of them. So again, thank you, County Manager Greer, and to the staff, thank you for all the work that we do. Everything we talked about, or I just talked about with our delegation, is because of the work that you're doing for us every day. So I'm going to open it up now to the commissioners. And commissioners, I would just ask that you try to keep your comments respectful, as we want to be allow the delegation to get out in a timely manner. I know they have other things tonight, so if you can just be respectful of time, a couple minutes on comments or anything that you'd like to add, and I will open it up. If Commissioner Faircloth, you'd like to start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any specific comments other than what we've already gone over, but I will say that the big change in the emergency department was not. It was a multifactorial process that probably the Medicaid expansion was one of two of the largest components of that drop from 9th to 15th, and the other one would have been the fact that we opened up almost 100 beds right above the emergency room where we had somewhere to put people so we could put other people in the emergency room. So the throughput there has increased dramatically, and we're still one of the busiest emergency departments in the country, and will continue to be that way. And we're a level 3 trauma center at Cape Fear Valley, trying to make level 2, and that's going to be a process. And the Medicaid piece, I just can't overemphasize the need to keep that in place and to keep it out of the county's pocket to have to fund part of it. So that's really all I want to say about that. It's not all about medical care, but it's all about county dollars.
Thank you, Commissioner Faircloth. Commissioner Patel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you all for the delegation for being here. Really appreciate your time and all the efforts that you make to make sure our community keeps moving forward. I'll keep it brief. I think, to the chairman's point and Senator McGinnis, we've made some big lifts in the last year or two, and we want to continue doing that. We want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. I think, the reevaluation is as much as we tried to keep it from hitting the pockets of our residents as much as we could without putting downward pressure on our quality of programs and services. However, looking at potential unfunded mandates coming in, we've seen it. I think the goal for us, looking on the larger scale of the population and residents, with so many homes and families on fixed income, whether it's younger families or older retired families at this point, we, as stable as our county tax base is, the opportunity to grow that is definitely going to be detrimental to the lifestyle. And in order for us to continue creating a good quality of life, investing in our water, and thank you for protecting our water as well. I know that's going to mean a lot to us, but if we're going to continue making these investments long-term from an infrastructure standpoint to our school system, anything you can help us with will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Tyson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the delegation, thank y'all so much, not only for being here today, but for what y'all do for our community. I know each and every one of y'all serve because you care about this community, and the residents and the folks here know that as well. Chairman talked about the meeting we had last year, and kind of some of the looks may be very similar to what we had. But what we hope you see is that the county is very different from where you were sitting here last year. With new board members coming on and and new leadership. We've seen a pivot in our strategic direction, and we tried very hard to work together for the benefit of the community. I think the community deserves that. Chairman talked about some of the wins and some of the things that we've really prioritized. I had a few more that I'd like to just add to that list, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. So we did earmark $20 million for a mental health diversion facility to be planned. This facility, as we went and met with every department of the county, one of the things we found from our hospital system to our detention center is a need for folks that are suffering mental health crisis to have a landing place where they can go. And so we're really proud about that. We think that that's going to help relieve stress on our detention facility and that population that Senator Applewhite talked about, but also some of our population that's at our medical center that really doesn't have a medical reason to be there, but just has nowhere else to go. We also earmarked and dedicated $10 million towards our new Cape Fear Valley Medical School. I'm personally proud about that because, as you know, this is going to be a huge economic driver and a huge employment driver for our community. And as that school comes online in June, we're going to look to have that help bolster our employment, our medical system, but also just add a different layer to our community that we haven't seen. And last, Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention public safety. Appreciate the ability to serve as your fire commissioner, your sheriff's liaison, and your local emergency liaison. But we've invested this year over $10 million in our public safety system, from 26 new response vehicles for sheriff's office as we found very old vehicles that were in distress, making strategic investments in our locking system for our detention facility that was critical. We also funded a new retention recruitment program for our sheriff's office to help us retain high-quality employees within that program. As we approved our budget, we historically funded our fire departments and our first responders. A lot of our fire departments, as their staffing has had to increase, as that volunteer model has been strained, we've seen that labor has become the #1 cost in that department. So everybody knows, I don't have to tell y'all, labor is one of the highest costs you can have in any org. So delivering that funding, I thought, was a really big win. But everything from that to new firearms for our sheriff's office, upgrading their training facility, new search and rescue tools, all the way up to a new unified command response vehicle that our federal partners helped us procure $1 million in funding for. So we're really excited about these as well, and hope that you can see that this board is committed to moving this county forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tyson. Vice Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to start by saying I really appreciate the staff, and this is excellent work of putting this together with research. And I really appreciate the work that you all do on the state level, as well as that of my commissioners I work with. But I must say this, what this shows is great and wonderful when it comes to that of what we've invested, and we're moving forward, and with that of allocations of money and that of what we're asking. But what it does not reflect is that of that reality, and I'll be the one to put it out there. There is a marginalized, disenfranchised, and not an equality that we need to improve on when it comes to, let me start with education. Number one, although we really appreciate that Jack Britt in the economic development, as well as that in Grace Creek, has been able to progress, we need that same economic development, and I'll be the one to address the elephant in the room, to be happening over at E.E. Smith, marginalized community, mainly black and brown people. I know it might be uncomfortable. I'm from a military town. Kumbaya, do great. My father's an officer. My family's taking care of. My mom's an educator, civil service. But the reality is, as being the only one on this board who's been that, have worked for over 26 years in family services, the reality is everybody in this room has been blessed for the most part, though we've had challenges and tribulations to not have to worry about using SNAP, or if so temporarily, or not having to worry about living in someone's backyard. So I'm here to talk for those individuals that are going through that. So what I'm going to need to have, and my request ask, and I hope they have the support of this board, is that when it comes to education, the same way we see that of growth, economic development, wonderful, great school in that of the area. And if we would have pulled some numbers from our census in here for, that of race and equality, but that's not shown here. Kumbaya, I live on West Fayetteville. Glad to see it's expanding out in that of Jack Britt. We know what comes with new school systems, and that of people, economic development, want to move their families. Same thing with Grays Creek. I'm going to need that same support, state legislative as well as on the local legislative, to happen right here on Murchison Road, of a school by which is one of the older schools, and they deserve the same equality. Now that we know the numbers are in here, let's move on to water and infrastructure. I'm going to need that same kumbaya, and we're making it happen in Grays Creek and other areas to make sure that Shaw Heights does not get left behind. Appreciate the staff doing research, as was asked about that last month, but it is still somewhat behind. Again, Murchison Road, primarily African-American area. We're going to need some equality. This is a diverse, community with military and diversity. So I'm going to need, when these dollars do come back, and we are making sure that we are making progress, that we look at all areas of town to make sure that individuals, especially the black and brown individuals, whether you're Indian, you're African American, you live on Murchison Road, Shaw Road, do not feel left behind. They put me in this seat, as well as the rest of you all. Although it sounds great and wonderful, this is good information, I'll be the one to take the hit. Uncomfortable conversations need to be happening, because that's what I'm being told in my community. The big, beautiful bill, as we see in here, it depends on who you talk to if it's a big, beautiful bill. Let me keep that real, because when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare and SNAP, the single mothers that I've been talking to, not only when I came from the background of family services, that maybe their husband passed or they got divorced, they have 2 children, they're not lazy, although they've been stigmatized, and they're going to school and their benefits are being cut, and people that have never been down to areas such as Bonnie Doon, areas such as Grove Food Terrace, that we at this table, many of y'all haven't even been down there, but you're making decisions for individuals who live there. So these are the concerns of what I am here to address, as I was put in this seat to do. And those are the concerns that I've been hearing. I'm hearing from people on E. Smith, how is it that our school's deteriorated? We got a Jack Britt on West Side where I live, but it's still in question if we may or may not have a new East Smith. They're trying to figure out, how was Grays Creek already put up? And then, like I stated, because I don't want to spend too much time on that, I've got people down in Shaw Heights asking me, I'm happy to hear about Grays Creek, but we've been here established longer than that. So like I said, I am known as the People's Commissioner. Numbers look great. Kumbaya, give ourselves a hand. But these people living in the backyards, because I went from being a case manager to a director at many well-known places, from Communicare to Service Source, they're not interested in these numbers. They're interested in, have you forgotten about us? Because I see on other sides of town things being taken care of. So I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer. I'm here to be the realistic one. And then, since we talked about infrastructure, which is great out here in Grays Creek and all these other areas, but we're forgetting about Savoia Heights, and we're talking about all this other development, but E. Smith is still not up, and now they're concerned consolidation. They feel blindsided, because everybody in here, including me, we are here employed by the people. They're not happy with no transparency, which leads me to my last statement. When it comes to Medicare, and that of SNAP, glad you mentioned that. Healthy quality of life, since you are, respectfully, Commissioner Tyson, on that of public safety, we got to talk about health and wellness, as I am the liaison for the Department of Health, Social Services and Public Health. And I'm here to tell you, consolidation is now a concern. Since that's been brought up, respectfully, we can look into that. We're not all these other 8 communities that have went to that. 2014, 2018, research from the staff stated that we are a unique community, that it was not the best benefit for this community. Let's just keep that real, although we're going to re-look at it again. But I have nurses, I have doctors, and I have the same individuals that I just named from a tier 1 who feel forgotten down by E.E. Smith, Bonnie Doom. Some of you guys are probably saying, where is that? I know where Grace Creek is, but I don't even know where Bonnie Doom or Grove Terrace is, so let me be the one to tell you. Those are the areas of what people call the projects. Those are the people that are using the public health department. Those are the people that are using DSS. And by the way, Wake County just flipped back. After being that of consolidation, it wasn't a good fit. So we are in crisis in this city. Thank you, Kumbaya. We're giving ourselves accolades today, but I'm going to tell you who's not getting accolades. People on the bridge where I went to go visit, people in the projects, I welcome you all to come. They'd be glad to see you at one of their meetings down there in Groveview Terrace. They'll be glad to see you in Bonnie Doon, because it's not a big, beautiful bill for them when you can't even get. By the way, if you're someone with allergies and you cannot afford to get an EpiPen, or by the way, because even though my sister had the best keeping it transparent since I'm making decisions for these type of families, even if you have the best of insurance like my parents did, TRICARE for Life, and my sister who died of cancer with the best insurance last year, we are in crises. So I appreciate all the work that we're doing, and we're giving ourselves some accolades, but we have a long way to go. And what I would encourage you all to do when we look at these numbers, take in consideration, go visit down in the projects. It might be uncomfortable. Go run on down there to Bonnie Doon, because they matter too. Go on down to Groveview Terrace. Go speak to some people that are 80 and 90 years old that depend on the health department and DSS that aren't doing as great as all of us are doing in here. And let's take in consideration with these numbers those individuals. Now, I know what I just said is making some people uncomfortable. We're not here to be comfortable. We're here to let them be comfortable so they can live a lifestyle comfortable for them as that of what we get to do in serving them. No zip codes left behind. Appreciate the work the staff's doing. Appreciate what you're doing on the state level. Appreciate all my counterparts. But I had to say that because I feel like in this big, beautiful book, many times those that are disenfranchised are being left behind. And then mental health, last but not least, if y'all want to do the research on that, we are one of the lowest states, is the truth, high rate of suicide when it comes to youth. I am a qualified mental health professional. High rate of those, not just for our veterans, but for civilians. So although we're doing all this great work, we sincerely have a long way to go to ensure we need fair equality across Cumberland County. All this great work we do in West Fayetteville. I live on that side, shout it out, where is Grace Creek? I'm going to need to know that in between Murchison Road, Shaw Heights, Bonnie Doon, and also Groveview Terrace, I'm here to represent them as well, that they're not left behind. When the money comes back, can we equally distribute? Come on, somebody. That of making sure those areas, as a collective, as we said, united front, Cumberland County is being provided services. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, so I just want to ask this, and I know we meet with the school board on tomorrow, but is there anything, thank you, Commissioner Jones, is there anything that your board can do to assure that the money allocated or appropriated for a new E.E. Smith, makes it to E.E. Smith? Because I know with policy changes, appropriations, allocations and such, given the chairwoman, spoke of her advocacy, I know we're meeting about it tomorrow, but, it's just a question.
Yes, sir. So to answer your question, Representative Colvin, if you craft in the legislation that directs it to that school, just like in previous legislation where there were Parks and Rec dollars directly to a Mabel Smith Center or Gilmore Therapeutic Center, that is the will of the legislature, and you have the ability to do that. So I think the answer to your question is yes, sir. So I want to be respectful of people's time, and I don't want to open it back up if I can. I wanted to see if Representative Wheatley had any closing comments.
No, I think we've learned a lot. I've been to all the places that the Vice Chairman talked about, visited, lived on the western part of town, have a daughter that went to E.E. Smith. I think we're all very aware of what's happening in our community. So I hope we'll all be able to work together to make this the place that we want it to be.
So let me close this out.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say one thing to him about what he's doing tomorrow, if you don't mind.
Vice Chairman, I need you to be very brief.
It's going to
because
be
I'm gonna
very
close
brief,
out. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman,
You're
because this
recognized.
is, thank you, I appreciate it. And tomorrow, when you do meet with the school board, keep in mind, not just E. Smith, I would appreciate if you all would also advocate for that as of March 9th, because they do have some schools they've allocated money to when it comes to elementaries, which is our future. Make sure that when you're looking at that, such as Spring Lake and other areas, that you ask them for data, not to forget again about some of those areas. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, because as we know, we all have to be a voice for all those to include the disenfranchised. So thank you, Mr. Representative, since you're going tomorrow.
Commissioner Faircloth, I guess I open it up for round two, so go
I'll
ahead.
just be very brief, and I'll remind everybody, and the Vice Chairwoman and I were on the board at the time we did this, but there's been some confusion in the community about what this board has voted to do and what it hasn't voted to do regarding E.E. Smith. But the most important thing, the only vote other than some money that we moved, was the school board kind of punted to us the location and gave us several location possibilities. The only thing we actually did, we voted not to build it on Fort Bragg. And the very reason for that was the potential for development. There would be no development around a Fort Bragg school, but there might be the potential. As you mentioned, like Jack Brett, since it's come, there's been a tremendous amount of development there. There's been a lot of development in Grays Creek because of the new school. So if we can come to some consensus on the location in the marginalized neighborhoods, as she mentioned, if we can keep it somewhere near that area, then there is potential for development around there. And for that reason, we voted not to build it on Fort Bragg. And that was not a vote against building E.E. Smith. It was a vote against the Fort Bragg location.
No, thank you, and I fully understand. I fully understand, and I'm a product of Cumberland County Schools. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Coleman. Thank you, Commissioner Faircloth, and just want to point out that that was the previous board that took that vote, not this current board. Real quick, as we wrap up, again, hopefully the takeaways that you saw is that we are here to work with you. We've made some asks. We understand the budget situation that our state is in with Western North Carolina, as just well as where the budget process is. But there are some other opportunities. There's some policy opportunities that we really need your help in as a low wealth community. There's some grant activity that could benefit us as we look at water and sewer in our community that would be critical for us. So we appreciate those. I hope you saw, and some was articulated, that we are making the investments in our community. We're not just reaching out and looking for dollars from somewhere else. We're using the tax dollars wisely. I want to also point you, in your book, you have a resolution that outlines the way we're looking at regional water and sewer, so you can take a look at that. We've signed that, and that's been sent out. Also, we will look to get on your schedule either back here in district or up in Raleigh to give you a little bit more in-depth and get you caught up on the water and sewer, because a lot has definitely changed. Last thing I'll say is, please call us. If we can do anything to help you, you guys go to these meetings after meetings. You've been to the city, you're going to school tomorrow, you're coming to us, you'll probably go to all the other towns. Everybody asking for something. If we can help you, call us. I think each of you have my cell number. If we can do anything for you, please reach out. Please reach out to any of us, our clerk, our manager as well. And just know that we're here to help you. Thank you again for your time. And if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you for your time. Before everybody gets up, we still do have to adjourn the meeting. So this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Vice Chairman Jones.
Motion to adjourn this meeting at this time.
We've got a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned.